He said, and he's got more figured out about life than I do. And I remember thinking something's different about me. Like I'm different. And and I knew that as a kid. And I think there's lots of people listening and watching right now that you're different too. And you have to be careful to not demonize your difference because your difference, that's your special sauce. That's the thing that makes you unique. That's the thing that nobody can do what you do when you do how you do when you do what you do it. And that's the thing that generates your income. That's the thing that generates your influence. That's the thing that generates your impact, is the thing that makes you different.
All right. Well, today, welcome to the show, Bishop Kevin Foreman. Great to have you.
Listen, super excited to be with you today. And I know our conversation is going to add a lot of value to everybody watching, everybody listening. I just got to say at the onset, I see your guitars in the back. And that just reminds me that I was supposed to learn how to play guitar, but I couldn't get the fingering. So I just got really good at keyboard and stuff like that years ago. But love what you do.
Oh man, thanks, man. And yeah, so I'm not that great at guitar, but one of the things that for me is that I enjoy the process of it.
Yeah.
I enjoy just doing it. It's not for some goal of being on stage and being a rock star or anything. It's just actually the process of learning, and that's a big part of this show as well. Is we talked about it briefly before we started recording, but that's a big part of this show is getting to learn from other people's experience and their mindset and their journeys. Before we jump into the deep end, would you mind giving a brief snapshot, a little thumbnail of who you are and what it is
Yeah.
that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. They call me the people's bishop because genuinely love, and want to see the people that are connected, the people that we lead, to prosper, to do well, to be the very best version of themselves. And so I see that through a 360 lens. Sometimes people, marginalize spirituality to just be in this little box over here. But I really believe it's integrated into everything that we are. And that's from faith to family to finances to fitness, like a 360 approach. That's my approach to life. To me, the gospel is good news, and good news works everywhere. Like it ain't good news if it's just good news over here. It's got to be good news in every area of our lives. And so I use my life to empower people, whether it's coaching, whether it's as a pastor, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. I own mergers and acquisitions, do a lot of private equity, buying and selling businesses, creating jobs for people. Been doing that since I was 12 years old. The joke is came out of my mom's womb with a Bible in a briefcase. I had this affinity towards spirituality and this affinity towards success in business. And I always saw these as two worlds that didn't conflict with one another, but they converged with one another. And so that's how I've honestly lived my life. And 12 started my first business. By 21, I built Denver's largest Black-owned real estate finance brokerage or mortgage company, and got into ministry at 12. Again, I started as a drummer. I was horrible. I enjoyed the process too. I literally taught myself how to play it. I would watch the drummer at church play, and he was a left-handed drummer. And for those unfamiliar with it, right-handed drummers normally play with their hands crossed. Left-handed drummers normally play like this. So I'm right-handed, but I was watching someone left-handed, so I thought that was the right way. So I learned this, and his name was Stan, and he used to move his shoulder like this when he played, and like that was just the thing. He had on Cazal glasses, like he was that man. He was that guy. I remember one day somebody asked me, said, "Okay, you're left-handed." I said, "No, I'm right-handed." They said, "Well, why do you play that way?" I said, "Well, that's what I beheld, so that's what I became. And that's what I looked at, so that's what I emulated." But long story short, eventually was inducted into the Colorado Gospel Music Hall of Fame. We planted a church, which is up Denver for 18 years. We've just recently moved our headquarters here to the Atlanta, Georgia area. We'll be fully launching in this area real soon. But we're a hybrid church reaching people literally, and this is no joke or this embellishment, literally across America, around the world, over almost 13,000 professions of faith that we've been able to record in our existence. And so the journey has just been amazing, and it's still going. Like I literally honestly feel like I'm only scratched the surface.
That's amazing. And all that, and you feel like you're just getting started. That's pretty
Oh
cool.
my God. I don't feel like I've done anything, to be honest with you. And that's an honest statement. That's not just, a false humility. I really be like, oh my God, I got so much I want to do. So, we'll get to it.
That's great. And you're filled with that joy and
Yeah.
doing it. Talk about enjoying the process and doing whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's the business, the books, everything you're doing when you're filled up with that joy. It's a bottomless well. It's just
Yeah.
like you always have that to push it forward.
Yeah.
I want to talk a lot about this, but before we do, because you talk about starting your first business when you were
Yeah,
12 years old,
yeah,
Bible in a briefcase.
yep.
So, what was your first exposure to business? Like you said, I want to start this business. Was there somebody in your life that you said, I want to do this? And you were like, oh, well, this is how you do it. Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, you know what? It's an amazing question because the reality is no. So I just knew I was different as a kid, and I learned to not demonize my difference. I was normally the one that stood out and was different. Like, in elementary school, I was a different type of kid. I was the kid who was making friends with the teachers and the principals because I was like, y'all want to hang out with one another, but I'm looking at who's got the power. I'm looking at who's got the, like I was drawn to leaders. And so I gave into that. So even in elementary school, I was born in Denver, but reared in Memphis. When Memphis City Schools, Smucker's the brand. I'm sure everybody's familiar. Smucker's grape and jam and jelly and all that. They came through and the principal said, well, he's got to be the spokesperson for this. So I was a very shy kid in private. You put me on a stage and I would come alive. The homework hotline was a new thing at that time. Like that was the cutting edge technology of the day that a parent could call in and get the homework for their kid. And so in the paper, the commercial appeal, I was the spokesman for that. I bring that up to say I was raised in a home with an amazing mom, but a stepfather who frankly was an abuser, a womanizer, a lot of things that you see and say, I don't want to be that man. And that really became a driving, motivating force for me that I think really pushed me into really locking into spirituality, and for me, which is Christianity, and really locking in to success in business. So I didn't see it emulated, to be honest. I didn't see it done. And so that's one of the keystones of the things that I teach about like being a curse breaker, that many times you're going to be the first in your bloodline, first in your family, first in your community, first in your company, first in your environment, first in your friend group. You're going to be the first to do it. So that's not just something I teach. It's something that I literally have lived because I'm the first in my family. No one in my bloodline has done what I'm doing. And I think it's an honor to be able to say that I've been the first.
So, one of the things that this reminds me of, my when I would talk to my mother about certain things that I would struggle with in my career early on, when I was like, oh, this isn't working. And she would say to me, or she said to me at least this one time, and maybe she only said it one time, but it really stuck,
Yeah.
is that, sometimes you have experience not necessarily to learn what you want to do, but sometimes to what you don't want to do. So it
Right.
sounds like having that experience with your stepfather. But then when it comes to in your journey in your life, and whether it be the church or books or movies or whatever it is, did you find mentors in other ways as you
Yes.
progressed?
You know what I learned to do is I learned to get what I needed, even if it was at a distance. I think sometimes people are looking for excuses. If you're looking, whatever you're looking for, you're going to find. If you're looking for an excuse, you're going to find it. If you're looking for a way to evolve, you're going to find that too. So I remember as a kid, there was a pastor who used to come on TV on Friday nights. He's in Los Angeles, California. And he would come on and his song, it kind of goes like this: evidence. I thought though, as a kid, they were saying Bennigan's. So for those who remember that restaurant, so I thought they were like Bennigan's, and I'm like, why are they talking about Bennigan's? Like, isn't this about church? Like, what is this about Bennigan's?
So church sponsorship, yeah.
Right? I was like, what is going on? Made me hungry, right? But so I watched the show, or watched the program rather, and I learned from a distance from him. And I learned early on that there was nothing I couldn't be or become. I just had to study what other people did. So there were tons of people from a distance that I did that with. And then up close, I would always seek out people who had something I wanted and put myself in a seat of a student to them. And I live life this way today where I sit in the seat of a student. People calling me to be an expert about a million things. And they'll say, well, what do you do? I'm a student. I'm a student of life. Because when you live life as a student, it gives you the opportunity to grow. You know why people get frustrated, angry, mad when things don't go their way? It's because you thought you were the expert. And when you think you're the expert and things go against what you think you know, it shatters your whole paradigm. It shatters what you believe. But when you're a student, you're supposed to make mistakes because that's what students do. And you're a student, everything is not going to go the way you think it's supposed to. That's how being a student works. And so I live my life that way. But to answer your question, absolutely. I think for me, I always said what I want exists, who it's in exists. I just have to find it.
I love that. Well, so, and growing up in the church, when did you first, take the stage and start to really, embrace that and become Bishop
Yeah.
Foreman?
Yeah. Well, you want to know something? We didn't really grow up in church. So we had a family, and this is another of those things. In Memphis, we had the family church, which was called St. Jude Missionary Baptist Church. So it was the family church right there on the south side. Well, I guess not really the south side of Memphis, in Orange Mound of Memphis. And, it's an area where people ever study it immediately post Reconstruction in the States. And it was an area that there was a lot of economic prosperity for African Americans. And as happened with many of those areas, it was targeted. It was, all the things that happened to intentionally make that area go down. So you saw a lot of crazy stuff. That being said, we would attend church periodically, but we weren't like in church, in serving church. When we moved to Denver, we would go to church. And that's when something really shifted in me because I said, okay, there it is, Bible and briefcase. And here I can do what's in me to do. So that really starts at 12. And I'm like, I got to do something. And I remembered I got a drum set because my friend and he and I were very competitive friends. So like I do something, then he's got to one up me. He do something, I'd have to one up him. Well, that was one of the best competitions ever because that made me get a drum set. I could not play the drums. I tried sax, didn't like it. Trombone, didn't like it. Trumpet, I was like three little things to make all these notes. I was like, no, this is not going to work. This is not going to work for me. I get this drum set, and I talked about how I taught myself to play. So I start calling the church. It was a very large church. I start calling the church music office and saying, listen, I play drums. I want to play for church. I play drums. I want to play for church. Like I couldn't get a call back for weeks, but it taught me persistence. So then I would just show up. I just said, look, I'm here to play drums and I'm here to play drums. And it would just so happen that the gentleman that was in charge at the time was dating my aunt. And so I leveraged that. I said, I need an audition because I play drums. And wouldn't you know it, I got that audition. So a week later, he's no longer with the church. So now it's a new team. So I'm like, I got to start all over from the process. And I call every single day and leave a message until I get a call back that opened the door. And that persistence taught me that whatever I want, I get it. I just have to go get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so okay, so so you were on the stage with the drums. When did you say like I want to live
I'd
that like
start preaching and
yeah,
yeah.
when did you start preaching?
Okay, yeah, here's another one of those things. I always was doing, because I started my first business at 12 too. So I've been building business, organization.
So sorry, I didn't mean to skip over that. So what was the business at 12? What was the
Yeah,
business
so
that you were
at
doing?
12, listen, I had high hopes. So I had an enterprise, which comprised of it was some of things I wanted to do, but the key focuses were a tutoring service, because I had a built-in clientele, my cousins, my brother and sister, and cousins, and then a lawn care service because I could undercut everybody else's prices. So I can undercut the guy up the street because it's just me. Yeah, so it was easy for that to do well. I even got a loan from a bank there called Young Americans Bank, or I think now the Young Americans Education Foundation. They had a special charter from the state of Colorado to offer financial products for young people, of course, with parental consent. So to this day, on the second floor of that bank, they have this thing called a merit town, which is basically like a city that young people come in and you can get different jobs. It's like a simulation. Middle school students, high school students, college students come through. Every entrepreneur that goes to that second floor, you can't go there without walking past a picture of me at 12 years old, holding up my first business plan, because we pioneered the program. I was the first one. Holding up that business plan. I got a $300 loan, flipped that, turned that into more than that. I don't remember what it was, but all I know is I had enough to pay it back. And I paid that loan back. And you move on from there, and I did a few other things, but I knew how to build things. I knew how to take nothing and turn it into something, and those skills would be invaluable. You jump to the second part from a ministry standpoint. Honestly, here's another one. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to preach. I didn't want to be a bishop. For those unfamiliar, what is that? It's the pastor of pastors. Every coach needs a coach. Every general needs a general. Every leader needs a leader. I didn't seek that out. I was sought out. I didn't seek that out. And so the way I got into preaching, so I was doing a lot of teaching stuff, in leadership groups and stuff like that. But I was like, I don't want to preach. I don't want to do that. Like, it's not something I want to do. One day, I was an associate pastor at the time. the senior pastor, he was traveling. It was Labor Day weekend. And so that particular weekend, I'm teaching all the time, but not necessarily doing Sunday morning services. I'm doing music. I'm leading songs, leading choirs, building my businesses, all of that. And he's out. He says, "I want you to preach." I'm like, I mean, I do the music. And I'm like, I'm over on the keys doing the music. What do you mean you want me to preach? I want you to preach. You go ahead and do the Sunday. So here's literally how that Sunday went. I did the music, right? So, let's just say, I don't remember what it was. Let's say 30 minutes of music. There was a little break where people kind of get up and go hug one another and greet one another. I got off the keyboard, had one of the other musicians come up and get on the keyboard. Then I got up to preach. So that was my first message, Labor Day of that year. I think it was, I don't remember the year, Labor Day of that year.
How old were you? How old were you at this point?
I had to be, I had to be 20 or 21. Yeah, I got started again, got started at 12 in ministry in general. So I had to be either 20 or 21. I think that was maybe, I had to be either 20 or 21, somewhere in there. But again, I lived the life, by 20 or 21, I lived the life of like a 40-year-old. And so, there was just a lot. I remember even the day I was ordained as a pastor, at the ordaining pastor said, I don't remember. I think he was maybe 54 at the time, and I would have been 19 when I was ordained, and originally. And he said, he's 19, I'm 54, and his words were this. I'll never forget them. He said, and he's got more figured out about life than I do. And I remember thinking something's different about me. Like I'm different, and and I knew that as a kid. And I think there's lots of people listening and watching right now that you're different too, and you have to be careful to not demonize your difference, because your difference, that's your special sauce. That's the thing that makes you unique. That's the thing that nobody can do what you do when you do how you do when you do what you do it. And that's the thing that generates your income. That's the thing that generates your influence. That's the thing that generates your impact, is the thing that makes you different. And so that was that Sunday. I preached that Sunday. Everybody after service came up to me. I still have the tape. That tells you how old, long ago it was. It was tapes. And everybody came up, "What an amazing message. What an amazing message." I was like, "Oh, I guess I can preach. Cool." And so, you go from there. Then a couple years later, we'd have the opportunity to start the church, and we did.
Well, a couple things. One, I want to say that entrepreneurship, there's something here in San Diego that Junior Achievement has.
Mm.
It's called BizTown, and then they have another program for older kids, but all the kids get to, and they're it's sponsored by different places. So Jack in the Box, whose corporate headquarters is here, U.S. Bank has a place there, and so there's all these little businesses, and people and the kids get to go around and see what it's like to kind of and get that experience, and it's fun, but also they get a feel for that. So it's really cool to see those
Yep.
type of programs just to get people or the youth with a comfort level of what business is and how it works. And when it bites you and that entrepreneurship and making something from nothing. So I definitely want to, I know it gets a hold of you, man. It gets
Yeah.
a hold of you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put a pin in that, but also I would love to talk more for a second about not demonizing your differences,
Yeah.
because I see, and well, I mean, we can go so many places with this, especially when you talk about mental health and where kids are and seeing like you're not this or you don't have this, or so it's not even your differences in who you are and what you do, but it's even like what you don't have, like seeing what
Yep.
other people have and the flashy stuff and all that. And it's like, well, I don't have that, or I don't look like that, or I don't do that. Can you just dive deeper in
Yeah.
how you think through this and talk through this to the people that you speak with?
Yeah, such a good point. And you heard me as you're saying, like, yep, yeah, yeah. Because I think we live in a culture that, to the point, it demonizes whatever is different, whether that's in excess or in deficit. And I remember as a kid saying, my stepfather again was a womanizer, abuser, lots of things you don't want to be. But there was some good from him. He was a very charismatic man. He could sell ice to an Eskimo, and he'd think that the Eskimo would be like, "Oh, what a great deal! Like, just got on this ice." Like, man, your whole house has been on ice. Like, what do you mean a great deal? He was just very charismatic. He was always going to figure a way out. Like if he hit a wall, he was going to figure a way out. Now, sometimes the way he figured out wasn't the best way out, but the point was, is he figured a way out. I say that to say, I remember one time saying, "God, why don't I get a father like everybody else?" Because he was in and out of being locked up. And so why don't I get what everybody else gets? And I remember understanding, back to not demonizing your differences, because I'd see other families and I'd see them with their dads and I'd see them show up and I'd see them show up. And while I had an amazing mom, amazing grandfather, I said, I want what they have. And sometimes you have to recognize that what looks like rejection is really protection. What looks like abandonment is really an opportunity for you to advance. And I learned that in anything, whatever it looks like there's something different, I have to ask the question of how does this work for my good? Because I just believe, and this is part of that joy you talked about. The reason I can have the joy that I do is because I believe I'm a conspiracy theorist. Now, listen to my conspiracy. My conspiracy is that everybody and everything are working together for my good. It's the opposite of paranoia. It's called pronoia. I genuinely believe that everything is working together for my good. So for me, I can have joy because it's like, even if you hate me, it's working for my good. Even if I'm delayed, it's going to be to my benefit. That reset and that shift back to not demonizing differences just says whatever is happening, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me.
I want to talk about how you find balance in all the different things that you do. Because yeah, you have the joy and you can do all those things, but when you're somebody such as yourself, well, not such as yourself, yeah, you're one of one. Let's say that. When you have these different options that you want to do and you want to, how do you? And yes, they may overlap, and there is a Venn diagram, and you are all those things. How do you balance your time, your attention, your treasure? Like how do you find balance in your life when it says like I'm going to focus on this now, I'm going to focus on that now? Is there a way that you approach that?
I do. You know what? I don't look for balance. And this is an unpopular opinion because we live in a culture, everybody's chasing balance. I'm on work-life balance. I'm with this balance. I'm on, and here's my fundamental core disagreement with the concept of balance. So 24 hours a day, we all get the same amount of time. Nobody gets 28 hours a day. Nobody gets 75 hours a day. Everybody gets the same amount of time a day. One third of that, your sleep. One third of that on average, you're working. So you really only get to influence one third of your life. So just from the onset, you're out of balance. So what is everybody going to do? Stop sleeping and quit their jobs? Or quit working, quit building their businesses, whatever it is? No. To me, balance was something that people can never find because it's something that can't be found. Instead, I believe in a prioritized life. First, second, third. What are my priorities in life? So for me, it makes it, and you mentioned the integration. So, right, a lot of what I do is integrated into who I am. So it's not like I have to go and be a different person or even put on a different hat. It's just I'm looking at a different camera. It's just that I'm, speaking to a different audience or what have you. So a lot of it is integrated. But then the other portions are priorities. My priorities are set based on those priorities. That determines what's getting handled next, what's being dealt with next, what's being approached next. And living a prioritized life allows me to live a purposeful life because I don't get mad that it's out of balance. I recognize that based on my priorities, this is what number one is. This is what number two is. Let's use my family, for example, very close to my family. Every week, we know Sundays after church, it's time for brunch. That's what we do. That's it. Like it's just our priority. So, you got this going on, got this going on. Very rare do we skip that. It keeps us cohesive. It keeps us close. So that way, like, a lot of families, when they kind of reunite around the holidays, or we reunite every week and sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. When it comes to my personal health, for years I was out of shape and I can celebrate now shedding over 120 pounds. Lost the first 75 pounds in 3 months, another 20 pounds a few months after that. And now, years later, like a total of 120 pounds. I'm in the gym. I guess I could be officially called a gym rat, although I don't really like rat, the connotation of a rat. But, and I was never like that before. But that's a priority for me. So
Mm.
now, before, I would just be like, well, I don't know. I can't get to it. I'm too busy. I said, nope. I said, this time is to be blocked out every single day. I don't care rain, hail, sleet, snow. I'm going to take care of me because at the end of the day, I refuse to set myself on fire to keep everybody else warm because they'll just sit there and watch you burn. So I live a prioritized life, not a balanced life. I don't try to find balance. I don't think it exists. I just make my priorities. And then based on that, I build my schedule and I recognize everything's not going to get done. That's okay. Everything is not going to get done as fast as I want it to get done. And that's okay. At the end of the day, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, I love that. I love that reframing and prioritization. Every time I think of balance and what it is, and it's a moving target. It's never like a static balance, but
Yeah.
like there's things that sometimes like you recognize when things are out of whack, and not even called out of balance, but things aren't. But having that priority matters, and knowing sometimes things do need to take higher priority over other things, and
Mhm.
you got to figure out that out when it happens. And when I was talking about this with one of my good friends, and we were talking about something similar, and he was like, "I'm not looking for balance." He said, "I'm looking for harmony." He said, I want all the different things that I'm doing to support one another and be aligned." And I was like, man, okay, that's another note that I'm not going to forget for a long time.
Yes.
I want to ask. Hopefully, this isn't out of bounds, but I want to talk about this brunch after church. How often do you talk in that brunch? I mean, not in a structured way, but how often do you take what was learned and what was felt in the service to brunch? Is it something that just bleeds over and you're like, oh, you know what I felt there today? You know what I said? Is that something that's intentional?
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, for us, it is absolutely that. I mean, it is not just a performative thing, it's a life thing. So it absolutely is the topic of discussion. And we absolutely talk about it. And we'll talk about that. Then we'll jump to this. Then we'll jump to that. Then we'll jump back over to that. But it absolutely is that. And I've been blessed in the way that some of my family is integrally involved in the ministry and played key roles and vital roles. My late grandfather, just passed away about approaching 2 years. It'll be this year. He was my grandfather, but my greatest spiritual son. He was amazing. Let me tell you something. And I found this out later on. He was very good with his hands. He could build, if you give him some bubble gum and toothpicks, he'll build you a building. Like, like, how did you do that with this? He was just an amazing man with his hands. And I just thought he was always like that. I only found out after his passing that my grandmother said, a lot of the stuff that he built and did for the church and you and whatever, he said he literally would just pray about it and then just go sketch it out and figure it out. I said, so he didn't like have any pre-knowledge and his stuff was always better. We bring in GCs to do stuff in buildings or whatever. His work was always superior. They would say, who built this? Because this is like, you can't tear this down easily. He was always that guy. I say that to say that I've been blessed in the sense that I have family that is extremely and integrally involved in what I do. Back to your point about harmony, it makes it so harmonious. And I love that analogy. It's the second time today somebody's used that terminology and used that ideology instead of balance. I'm looking for harmony. And I think that goes back to the integration, just like music. If I'm playing a C major chord, we don't sound the same, but we have to sound together. Because if not, what we're going to have is we're going to sound a mess.
I want to talk a little bit about the church establishing it, and how long ago did you make that move?
So this is 20 this year, May of 2026 will be 20 years since we planted it from scratch with nothing. And entrepreneurship and planting a church are the same thing, just ultimately different purposes.
I would love to be able to walk through the decision making process when you did that, because it's no small feat. And I know it's a little bit distant now, but I'm sure like anybody who builds something, like you don't forget, you don't
No.
forget. So how long, like what was the intent behind it? Like what was the thought process? And, walk me through that genesis.
Right. So, for me, it was something I didn't necessarily want to do. But the business side of it was easy for me because I've been doing that. I've been starting things from 12. It was some of the other components, like, oh my God, I have to have something to say every week. I have to make a message every week. And then when you're in a Bible study twice a week, you're constantly being brought into the most intimate, best of people's lives and the worst of people's lives. You are calling shots, so you're taking the shots. And all the shots you're taking are from the people you're helping. Like some people may be familiar with this terminology, church hurt, where people have gone through a church experience and it created some type of trauma or pain. And what I discovered as a shepherd, as a pastor, most of my hurt came from sheep. I like sheep bite. And some of them have grills. Like some of these sheep have grills and they will bite you with that grill. And so those are things I wasn't prepared for. Nobody prepared me for the emotional toll and the emotional pain. And that's how I gained a lot of weight, is because I didn't realize how much of a toll that had taken on me. And so that's one side of it. The business side of it, though, was very easy for me because I knew the technical pieces of starting a business. I knew that marketing was important. So here we are, a 6-month-old church with a television department. Like, who has a television department? And you're 6 months old. Like, you barely off the ground. But I knew that it didn't matter if the message was good if nobody heard it. It didn't matter if the product was great if nobody knew about it. I think a lot of times people get excited about being the best kept secret. And I say, well, but where's the win in that? Where's the win in that? If nobody knows that you're good, and this is why we have, and I say this with all respect, not demeaning anybody, but this is why you have a lot of mediocre people winning because they know that being seen and being known is more important than just being better or being good. And I know that may be an unpopular opinion, but it's the truth. Sometimes we focus so much on being the best that we don't realize that we're in an attention economy. And if nobody knows you're good, if nobody knows you're the best, as if you don't exist. So we started with a TV ministry early on. This is before streaming is the thing. So we found a guy who worked for or he was a student at the Ohio Center for Broadcasting. They would, train people in radio and stuff like that. We found him, got one camera. And so I figured it out. We had a one camera shot. We were in a school at the time. And I said, okay, you're going to do the camera shot. You got to keep it. I'm going to keep it 100% with you and your audience. The shots, I wasn't even in them. Okay. He couldn't keep up with me because my energy, I'm moving, I'm doing, this is me all the time. And so after shots, I'm not in them. So we find a lady who does some posts and edits and stuff for a major TV ministry. We give her the stuff. So she takes the stuff and makes it into something amazing. For audience shots, we would have the audience get together. Remember, we're brand new. So, you got 50 people or something. So you put everybody together in the auditorium and we did B-roll. So I'd reteach the message, but to get B-roll footage of them clapping and that's right. And, amen and all that. I'm like, make it look like. And I remember people would show up sometimes and say, we saw you on TV. Where are the rest of the people? Because they just knew we had 10,000 people or 20,000 people. But to me, it was about understanding to reach people. And so, you matriculate from there, streaming becomes a thing. And not a lot of churches do streaming. This is before streaming is like it is now, where it's virtually free, predicated upon how you do it. Back then, it was like $2,000 to $5,000 a month. You had to get this big encoding computer. It was not this easy thing to do, but I knew if I wanted to reach people, I had to stay on the cutting edge of what it took to reach people. And so my decision-making process, we begin to build the metrics. We begin to build the marketing. We begin to do what we need to do to make an impact, reach people. And we went through several different iterations of who we were. And I wasn't afraid to change. I wasn't afraid. I remember our original name was called Urban Word. And the goal was to really target people who were often marginalized by church, left out. Sometimes church can have a country club mentality. Like, if you're not part of the country club, you don't belong here type of a thing. And I said, I want to reach the people that everybody else is throwing away, everybody else looks down on. And so to me, it made sense up front. And then I got my leaders said, oh, that's a great idea. Call it Urban Word. And then I remember sitting one day and I was talking with a couple and I said, okay, y'all, when y'all hear urban, what do you think? And they said, when we hear urban, we think that it means this is only a Black church. And in Denver, there's not enough Black people to just be a Black church. Denver's like 4% African American. And so I said, but that's not the goal. The goal is diversity. And so we had a name change. And then we had another iteration, another iteration. I learned that it's okay to evolve in front of people because it gives them permission to evolve for themselves.
Can you repeat that?
Yep.
Could you say
I learned it's okay, that it's okay to evolve in front of people because it gives people permission to evolve. Like sometimes we want it to be perfect and we do nothing. And it's okay to start and evolve.
yeah, okay. So I'm so glad we're talking about this because also there's something about having a good team and being on a team, and it's okay to it's not going to be perfect.
Yep.
Give it a shot. Give it your best
Yep.
shot. But if
Yep.
it's not up to that standard of what other people want, like that's okay. Don't have to beat that person. Like this is why we could do a different way, and it's not wrong, but we need to button this up and do this thing. I mean, I'm actually, I'm not even going to go there. But so I'm dealing with something with that area. But it's like, hey, listen, that's why we're a team. That's why we do this in house and figure out and get it right. So when it leaves the door, it's something that we're all proud of. Don't have to beat each other up. We're a team. We're not making mistakes on purpose. Let's get together and do this and put it out there. So I mean, I think that's huge, and giving people grace, giving people room to take a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll evolve and you'll learn more from the failures, air quotes, and mistakes than you would otherwise. If you did everything that you thought was right, then are you growing?
Yep.
Probably
So
not.
true. So such a good point. And it took me a while because part of me thought it has to be right. Because remember, I've experienced all this success in business, all these awards and accolades. I had to adapt that mentality because the thought was, I want everything to be just right. And I said, but that's just not reality. It's not going to be that. It's okay to release it one way and then say, you know what? Got to evolve. Let's do another way. It's okay to say this idea was great for the first quarter. It's horrible for the second quarter. It's all right to say to a person, you were great in this seat and during this season, but now I need you to change seats. It's okay to say, I played football for like a year and a half. I underscored a year and a half because remember, I'm talking my whole life. I'm different Bible in a briefcase. I tried football because, it was sort of the thing to do. And I got popped one time during a blizzard. I was running back and fullback, and doubled as middle linebacker. And so I got popped one good time during a blizzard in Denver. And I said, this is not the life for me. Let me go and let me stick to church and business. This is not the life for me. But,
Send you to Jesus.
no, no, yeah. This y'all can have this. I'm good. Let me go start a business and y'all out here fighting this all that. But you have to evolve and be okay with the evolution process. Because when you evolve, one of the things I love about the word evolve and evolution rather than revolution means change, but it doesn't always mean change for the better. Evolution is change that can never revert. The butterfly can never go back to being a caterpillar. It can never go back. And that's what I love about that word evolution is because you know what? All right, I can't go back to what I was because I know too much now. I can't go back to what I was because I've grown too much. And that's, again, it's that reframing, reshaping how you view things so that things don't seem so insurmountable. They're not. They're not.
Of all the lessons that you've learned, I mean, this is kind of a wide question because there's so much in your experience and actually before we even go there, because I want to think about this question more before I ask. But one thing I would really like to know of all the people that you impact in their lives, and you talk about reaching out people and spreading the good news and giving people a framework and understanding of the spirit of the good news. What's your favorite part? Is there one thing that you
Yep.
like when somebody comes to me with this and I'm able to do and they go, oh, and a light bulb moment? Like, is there anything that stands out?
Listen, unquestionably, undoubtedly, testimonies. Testimonies move me in a way that outside of being obedient to what I believe my assignment in the earth is, which is to change the lives of people, the testimonies. That testimony can be anything from a person who didn't commit suicide to a person who just crossed a new level in their business and say, Bishop, oh my God, you prayed, we did this, you and that. It can be somebody I've coached where I've seen, and we started measuring how many new 6 and 7 figure earners we create, because that's one of the things I'm graced to do. Take nothing and turn it into something. What seems crazy and difficult to others, I'm like, nope, do this, do this, do this. Come back and see me in 6 months. Oh my God, it worked. Those testimonies blow my mind. And I never get tired of them. So, is there one type of testimony that I love over the others? To be honest, not really, because for them, I don't. You know that saying about the starfish, where the kid all the starfish are on the beach, and the kid starts throwing them back in the water because the tide is going down and not getting it. And the guy comes up and says, "There's so many. Like, what difference are you making?" And he said, "Well, to that one, I made all the difference. To that one, I made all." And that's how I view it. It's not that one thing is better or bigger than the other, because for that person, that's the breakthrough they needed. And to be a conduit and a catalyst for them to get that, I promise you, I never get tired of it. I read those every day. I have a whole wall. Every card or every letter I've ever been written, I have a whole wall, what I call a wall of encouragement. I never ever throw them out. What I do is we will have them repurposed that reminds me of my labor and reminds me of my impact and reminds me I keep going. And so to me, it's a testimony. And there's not one over the other, because to that one, that was what they needed.
When you have an impact on someone's life, when you're talking to somebody, or when they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, this is my goals, and
Mhm.
you're in the coaching role, is there a common theme or a thing that's you see that stands in most people's way? I mean, everyone's going to have something different, right? That like, oh well, these people need to do this and they need to do this, technically. But is there a common theme that you see most people are just doing X and shooting themselves in the foot?
Yep. You want to know? It's so simple. It's normally them. Most people's problem is themselves. And I don't say that in a condescending way. I say that in a prudent way. That for most people, the only place their challenges exist is in their head because they don't actually even exist in reality. Fear only exists in your head. Most times, what you're sprayed up doesn't actually exist in reality. Not being good enough only exists in your head. It doesn't really exist in reality. And so what I see from most people, it normally boils down to one of three things. One, there's a fear to let go of the past. Most people live to protect the past instead of create the future. And if you're busy protecting what life was, you'll never turn it into what life could be. Two, what I see often is a fear of failure. And normally people are I'm just so scared to fail. I'm scared to fail. It's actually more difficult or it's easier to have a fear of failure after you've achieved something than having achieved nothing. Because once you achieve something, now there is a protectionism mentality that I don't want to go back. I don't want to lose. I don't want to do that. So I've often discovered that some of my best achievers are the most fearful. And they're most fearful because I got something to protect now. Back then I didn't have anything, but now I got something to protect. I got an image to protect. I got money to protect. I got defense, whatever it is. And often that fear of failure is not even really wise because, then I begin going through and I said, so tell me your last failure. And they'll tell me what the failure is. And I'll say, so you don't seem to be scared of it. You seem to like it. You seem to love it. You seem to live there and visit there pretty often. I said, what it is you fear the unknown. The unknown is what your fear is of. It's not a failure. And so what happened last time you failed? And we walked through it. And for most people, by the time we walk through it, they're taking action. Because I'm a big believer, and here's the third and final thing. It is easier to get excited than it is to execute. It's easier to have ideas than it is to implement. So I think the third thing that most people do is most people go through repetitive planning as a form of repressed procrastination. And I'm going to say that one again.
Yeah, yeah.
Most
So
people,
let me give it to
yeah,
give
most people go through repetitive planning as a form of procrastination. You keep going over it, over and over and over and over and overthinking and overanalyzing and checking this data and checking that data. And listen, I'm all for education. We have a whole Bible college that I'm chancellor of. I'm all for education. But what I've discovered is most people use perpetual preparation and perpetual planning as a form of procrastination. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. When the reality is the world bends to people who take action. That's a fact.
speaking my language, man.
You know?
Amen. Wow.
Good.
Okay. Wait. So, all right. Let me get back. So
Good.
all right. I want to make sure that we take some time in our last few minutes here and talk about your recent book. Want to talk about that and how it came to be, and floor is yours. Tell me all about it.
Yeah. So got several books. The most recent one, History Makers, it's this next evolution. For years, we've been Harvest. And I began sensing that I needed to expand the mission of what we were doing. And so this term History Makers, we did a conference one year, History Makers. And I said, what do I really want? What do I really do? Because sometimes you can think you do something, but what you do is a different thing. You can think you do this, but you really do this. You can think you do that, but you really do that. I said, what do I really want to produce? And I said, I want to produce people who change the world. Well, what is that? That's a history maker. And so I began to look at ways, how does a person become a history maker in their everyday life? Because a person might say, well, Bishop, I'm just a mom. I'm just a dad. I'm just a business owner. I'm just a small business owner. I'm just a this. I'm just a that. And I'm like, well, let's fix some of your language. Take that just out. You are demeaning who you are and demeaning the impact of it. Jesus' mother was, I'm sure some might say, just a mom. But ma'am, you just gave birth to a world changer, a history maker. Whether you want to believe or not, you can't deny that the man changed history, right? Changed the world. And so I think for many people, there is this playing down of who they are, thinking that somehow that is humility, when really what it is it's sleeping on the greatness that's you. You might be a mom or a dad or a business owner or a manager or a supervisor or whatever it might be. But right where you're at, you have the ability to make history and change lives. Even in what you're doing right now, only attorney is going to tell how many lives have been impacted by you hosting conversations that became catalysts for transformation for people. And the reality is that's history making behavior. And I think for everybody, when you view your life through the lens of this is bigger than me, I am a piece of a puzzle that's bigger than me. And my piece is going to make history, whether it's in my family, whether it's in my bloodline, in my community, in the city, in the region, in the nation, in the world. I am a history maker. So the book History Makers walks people through how to do that in their everyday lives. And it's the next iteration of what Harvest becomes, because Harvest is evolving once again into History Makers. And so everything will be rebranded as History Makers Church, History Makers College, History Makers Foundation. Everything will be History Makers. And that'll be the next phase of what we do is I'm going to spend this next part of my life making people who make history.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
congrats. And
Thank you.
also, we're going to share a link to Harvest and your bio and the book. Everything will be in the show notes, so we'll make sure to include all that there.
Yeah.
But on that, on the history maker, and also, well, let me phrase this in this manner, because also when you have a goal or you want to do something and you plan and then you go do it and you take that first step, how do you see seeing the big picture and making history and knowing that you're doing something big and you're doing something
Hmm.
important and being in the present moment?
Yeah.
How do you look at that? Is this something you thought about or is covered in the book? And thinking big but working small in a way,
Yeah.
or
I
locally,
love to say,
thinking globally, working locally, I guess, in a
yeah.
way.
Listen, now come on, Brandon. I love that. Listen, I'm going to take that. And the first two times you get full credit. That third time, I'm going to tweak it enough.
Well, I don't
So
know.
no,
Maybe there may be a book out there named I don't know, but it's like that's something there. There's something there.
yeah. You know how I like to do that is as I ask this question, how do you eat an elephant? Now, obviously, I don't mean that literally for all of those who are concerned. I don't mean that literally. But when I ask people that question, I said, well, what do you mean, how do you eat an elephant? I mean, one bite at a time. I said, exactly. Just because it's big doesn't change the approach. You have to do it one step at a time, one brick at a time, one conversation at a time, one team member at a time. Everything is done one at a time. And I think when you approach anything that way, it gives you the freedom and the tenacity to be able to work in such a way that you can think globally, but then work locally. You can think big, but work small. Because at the end of the day, big doors swing on small hinges. And most people want a big door, but they never learned how to properly get those hinges together. I'm the type of person, let's get the hinges together because the door will swing open on its own. Let's just get the hinges together. And I think the way you do it is you just one bite at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. You'll know the old saying, Rome wasn't built in a night. And that's true. Anything great doesn't happen overnight. It looks overnight to everybody watching, like, oh, it's an overnight success. 13 years in the making, 20 years in the making, 40 years in the making, but it's never really as easy as sometimes people want it to seem.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, listen, before we take off, you've been very generous with your time and your information and your spirit and everything. Congratulations on your success. You are making history. You're doing big
Uh,
things. I love everything I see, and I can't wait to read the book. And actually, now I got to go back and read the other books.
yeah.
Before we take off, is there any parting notes you wanna share with the audience?
Well, again, I just want to say this again to you. Big salute to you for what you do. Super important. And I really mean that. It's not patronizing. I really believe that. And you just never know the lives that you'll impact and change. And so everything that I've heard concerning you has just been, is amazing, 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 amazing. So I was super excited for our conversation today. But I encourage, again, your audience, there's books, music, messages, more. Bishopforeman.com is the website. And we prepared something just for your audience that those who want to take advantage of it, they just text the word Bishop, Bishop, to the phone number 55498. Text Bishop to 55498. And we want to give them a discount. We want to hook them up and be able to get their hands on those resources. And so something we just wanted to do for your audience. Again, it's just true to my nature. I just believe wherever I go, I'm supposed to sow something, I'm supposed to leave something, I'm supposed to release something. That's why I'm there. So I want to do that for your audience. But thank you for having me. And I look forward. This cannot be the last time. We're connected, so you can't get rid of me.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of me. This is gonna be this is gonna be a long relationship.
Yes.
But thank you, and I love that sentiment of giving without the expectation of receipt, because that's where most of the blessings, the good things in life seem to grow from, seem to blossom from. When you have this, say, like, how can I give? How can I help? How can I support? It's amazing what can bloom and blossom from that when you have that attitude.
So true.
Yeah, strong. Bishop Kevin Foreman, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.